how everything's so proportional that sometimes you get penalized. Yeah, maybe you miss like one tribal newsletter.
Okay, yeah.
That would be great. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so you can just carry that around.
Thanks, Diego. Appreciate it. So after, how long is your presentation?
It's about 40 minutes total, and then well, an hour. Questions. Yeah. Okay.
Good to go. Yeah, I think it's about.
Okay. Great.
I think I could do my teacher voice to fill the room, but I'm not sure about you. So.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Should I just wait till 2:30 to get started on the dot?
2 minutes.
Okay, two minutes? Okay.
I'm the last. I'm the anchor. There's only 4 of us. Oh, you added somebody. All right. Well, the anchor position would be fun. It could mean I don't present at all. Hopefully everybody keeps to their time.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. So I don't even have to time myself. So we got Q&A too, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there's a lot of time left over, I can just keep talking.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just come up when. Okay, so it's just 2:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our presentation, our panel about expanding environmental and outreach capacity. My name's Eileen Shanahan, and I'm the Region 9 Environmental Education Coordinator. Next slide, please. So we're joined today by some of our environmental education partners, and we'll each present for about 7 to 8 minutes and then have time for questions and answers at the end. And yeah, we'll wait till the end and pass around the microphone for questions. But I'm joined today by the North American Association for Environmental Education, which is one of our EPA teacher training grantees, as well as our partners with the Arizona Association for Environmental Education, as well as the California Association for Environmental and Outdoor Education, as well as the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals with Northern Arizona University. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background about environmental education. So it goes beyond just environmental information of awareness and knowledge to really include and incorporate critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, with the eventual result of being environmental stewardship and action. Next slide, please. So a bit of history about EPA's environmental education program. In 1990, the National Environmental Education Act was passed, which established several core programs, including our grants and teacher training programs, as well as youth and teacher award programs, which I'll talk more about, as well as establishing an advisory council about environmental education for the EPA administrator, and additionally establishing a nonprofit foundation called the National Environmental Education Foundation, which has some great resources and grant opportunities related to environmental education. Next slide, please. So a bit about our environmental education grants. We award 3 to 4 grants every year, and these are $50,000 to $100,000. So tribal agencies are eligible. So you could apply as a prime recipient, or you could partner with other tribes or organizations. The grant awards also include subawards of $5,000 or less. So you could also partner to receive one of those subawards. And they all need to have an educational component with a wide variety of environmental topics. So these grants are really varied and broad, covering all sorts of environmental topics and educating all ages as well, youth up to adults. Next slide, please. So these are the organizations that are eligible. So state and local agencies, tribal agencies, colleges and universities, nonprofits, and non-commercial educational broadcasting entities. So these are organizations you could partner with, or you could apply on your own. And our next competition will open in fall 2023. So if you have any questions about these grants, please feel free to reach out to me. Next slide, please. We also have our EPA National Youth and Teacher Award programs for environmental education. Next slide, please. So our youth award is our PEA award, the President's Environmental Youth Award. And this recognizes outstanding kindergarten through 12th grade youth that are doing environmental projects and promoting positive community involvement. And there's 2 parts to this award. One for younger students in grades kindergarten through 5th grade, and one for older students in grades 6 through 12. So we award one in each age group every year. And this competition is currently open and accepting applications until January 11th, 2023. So if you know of any outstanding youth doing environmental projects, please encourage them to apply. It can be individual youth, school groups, youth organizations, summer camps. So it's a really great award and a great opportunity to recognize the work of youth. Next slide, please. We also have our teacher award program called the Presidential Innovation Award for Environmental Educators. And this recognizes remarkable K through 12 teachers that are doing environmental work and incorporating that into their teaching. So this includes a financial award for professional development of $2,500, as well as an additional $2,500 for environmental education programs with students. And this is also open until January 11th. So if you know of any teachers that are passionate about the environment, please encourage them to apply. Next slide, please. So some ways EPA environmental education can support your work. You could apply for a grant or an award. We're also often looking for reviewers for our grants and award programs. So if you're interested in learning more or gaining some professional development around grants or adding something to your resume, it can be an interesting process to learn about who's applying and what that process is like. We're also happy to connect you to physical and digital outreach materials. So some of you may have seen, we have a booth out in the lobby with a variety of children's publications and environmental outreach materials. So you're welcome to take what's on the table as well as contact me to order in larger quantities. So we're always happy to share those with you. As well as if you're ever doing a project related to environmental education and are curious to connect with like-minded organizations, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and happy to try to connect you. We have a good size contact list and a wide variety of grantees that we partner with, so happy to make those connections for you. Next slide, please. And this is just a slide about some of our environmental education resources. So we have a wide variety of curriculum covering a wide variety of topics as well, and as well as those physical outreach materials. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have an event or want to share with your community. Next slide, please. Great. Well, again, thank you for joining, and I'm going to be passing it on to our partner, the North American Association for Environmental Education, but please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Next slide, please. We'll pass it on to Sarah, who's with us virtually.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I really wish that I could be there in person. Hopefully you can hear me okay, and I applaud the conference organizers for facilitating this in such a way that we can participate virtually as well as in person. My name is Sarah Bodor, and I'm the Director of Policy and Affiliate Relations for the North American Association for Environmental Education. We like to call ourselves NAAEE. But if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a professional association. We like to refer to ourselves as kind of a backbone organization for the field of environmental education. And we work with all kinds of different formal and non-formal educators across North America and in other parts of the world to advance environmental education. And we work together closely with our affiliate organizations, two of whom are panelists here with me today, to provide capacity and infrastructure support for environmental education. Next slide. And our mission is just to use the power of education to advance environmental literacy and civic engagement to create a more equitable and sustainable future. We really feel that this marriage of environmental literacy and civic engagement is increasingly critical to our shared goal of achieving a more just and sustainable future. Next slide. One of the foundational pieces of that infrastructure that I mentioned is our Guidelines for Excellence series. So we have worked with experts across the field of environmental education to really establish best practice and standards for high quality environmental education in all kinds of settings and through many different instructional approaches. So there are guidelines for early childhood education, guidelines for teacher professional development, all sorts of guidelines in this series and more coming. Next slide, please. One that I really want to call out here today is our one of our more recent modules in the series, which is our Guidelines for Excellence in Community Engagement. This is a really robust set of practices for creating inclusive environments for effective partnerships and collaboration. We offer workshops and also a trainer's bureau for these guidelines. And we do occasionally have small grants available to help pay for anyone who might want to host guidelines for community engagement training. Next. Oh, and I should just also say that we have guidelines for climate change education coming soon. They're being worked on right now. It's a pretty lengthy and robust process, so it'll be another 18 months. But that's really exciting to see climate change education guidelines coming as well. Next slide. And we also focus quite a bit on building leadership across the field of environmental education. And I want to flag a relatively new fellowship that we actually wound up having to run mostly virtually through COVID. We had our first cohort of Sea Change Fellows. And these are folks who are working across the fields of environmental education and civics education. And so professional development over an 18-month fellowship, small grants for community-based projects, and did have the good fortune of being able to get these folks together twice in person finally over the summer, and most recently at our conference just about 2 weeks ago. We will be putting out a new call for our second cohort in January of next year. And so if you are someone that is interested in opportunities, or you know folks either in formal or non-formal educational settings that might be interested, we'd love to have your interest. Next slide. We've more recently been doing a lot of diving into what's happening in the realm of climate change education policy, and have just released this report, which is an analysis of what's happening in statewide education policies across the United States in a K-12 public school setting. We're really excited to be sharing a set of recommendations based on those findings. Next slide, please. And we don't have time here to go through all of the findings and recommendations, but I just share here, you know, across the board, we're finding that we need to do more and better when it comes to climate change education, both in formal education settings and non-formal settings as well. And that report is available on our website. Next slide. We'll be putting out 2 more in this series of reports, one on what's happening in policy across higher education as it relates to climate change, and then what's happening in the non-formal community-based organization community. And so stay tuned for more information on those. Next slide. We've also, just to complement these higher level analyses, completed a survey of K-12 educators, both classroom teachers and administrators, more about their perceptions around climate change, what's being taught, what are the barriers, and what resources they feel that they need. Next slide. We worked with a firm called Edge Research to do this. This is what they do. They do kind of public opinion polling and surveying. And so they were able to secure a representative sample from across the country at all grade levels and all subject areas. And the next slide. More of the same, really, that we need to be doing a lot more, but you know, very clear indications that teachers are concerned about climate change. They want to teach about climate change. In the places where it's happening, it's really happening in the science classroom and is really limited to sort of the mechanics of climate change. But teachers really lack confidence in the topic. They want more locally oriented resources, and they also recognize that it needs to be taught in an interdisciplinary manner. The survey findings to me have been really fascinating, and we're looking forward to producing more materials as we dive deeper into the findings of the survey. Next slide. I know I've just sort of shared a whole bunch of stuff, but I do just want to say that we have a brand new website that has more information on all of these resources. And so I would encourage you to check us out at NAAEE.org. And please also take a look at EE Pro, which is our sort of networking platform for educators and affinity groups, and it's a great way to find resources, to engage in discussions, and to really connect with other professionals across the field of environmental education. And the next slide is just gives you a snapshot of the different affinity groups that you can join on EE Pro, and there are really all kinds of little communities of practice that are facilitated through this platform, so that you can kind of learn more about topics of interest to you and connect with your peers, frankly. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to, I don't remember if it's Estrella or LoriAnne going next, so it'll be a surprise.
I think it's
very
me.
much. Okay.
I think it's LoriAnne. Next slide. Yes, it's me. Hi, everyone. I am LoriAnne Barnett Warren. I use she, her pronouns, and I am also not with you today, but I'm remotely talking to you from Tucson, Arizona, which is on Tahoe, Octum, and Pasquayaki lands. Next slide. And we are the affiliate network for Arizona. So those of you that live in Arizona can certainly get involved with our association. I thought I might also share what we use as the definition of environmental education. Our focus is not just on K through 12 students, but we consider environmental education to be a collective movement to empower ourselves and our communities to cultivate a healthy, environmentally sustainable, and just world through all types of learning and educational experiences. Environmental education provides us with the knowledge, skills, and agency to inclusively address past, present, and future interconnected and systemic environmental and social issues in our community and our world. And so because of that, we don't only focus on formal and non-formal education for young people, but we also think about things including non-traditional education. Anyone that's communicating information about the environment to a community or to a group of people is an environmental educator. Next slide, please. And we have been around for over 50 years. So our organization kind of ebbs and flows, just like many other organizations that are nonprofits. We are a nonprofit run right now all by volunteer power. So we do rely a lot on the resources that are available from the EPA, as well as the fantastic resources from NAAEE, as Sarah was just sharing. And initially, our organization was more focused on youth education, and we were one of the leading states in the nation to have environmental education included in K through 12 standards. But as time sort of went on and projects shifted and things changed, our focus kind of got a little bit more distilled, and people were more interested in sustainability education and non-formal education and all those other parts that we know are also very important to just teaching our community members about how they are connected to the land and how they are part of an ecosystem. And so in the last few years, we've really tried to regain a standing amongst all different kinds of educators. And we hosted a conference in 2019 in person. We're going to have another conference in person in 2023, which is next year. So if folks are interested in learning more about that, you'll have my contact information at the end, and you're welcome to join us. Next slide, please. So we also redid our strategic plan pretty recently, and our goals for the next several years include really building a community network that provides quality environmental education to everyone. So that includes all of those folks that are reaching audiences in multiple ways. We also want to demonstrate culturally responsive practice and use cultural humility when we're working with people that are teaching others to get them to better understand how to communicate environmental education to their constituents or the people they're working with. We want to teach best practice in environmental education, and through that, we use the definitions and resources that NAAEE has available. And we want to inspire collective advocacy so that we're reaching environmental education programs and organizations, not just in our state, but also in our region. So we work pretty regularly with folks in New Mexico, and also Estrella and I have worked together on a couple things. So we're really interested in collaboration among different organizations. And I think the bottom line is that we do want to elevate the profession of environmental education, environmental sustainability, and anything that has to do with working towards a better society to raise the legitimacy of environmental education across all sectors. Next slide, please. And so to reach those goals, we have a couple of flagship programs that I'll tell you about that we've really been working hard on with our volunteer coordinating teams. Next slide. One is we are revisiting our environmental literacy plan and kind of reworking what we had from years ago. We had a white paper that we published on environmental literacy when we tried to revive the effort to get it back into the standards of education for K through 12 education. But we are working to broaden that a little bit again, as I said, and kind of define what it means to be an environmentally literate person. And hopefully some of that language will resonate with people that are not just working as educators, but working, again, as I said, with communities of people that they're trying to share information about the value of being, considering that you're part of the environment and part of the ecosystem. Next slide. The other big project that we have happening right now is we're trying to create a landscape analysis of all of the organizations that are providing environmental education programming to our communities so that people who are interested either in finding a program for their family or for somebody to participate in, they can have that information there. But also we're using that to gather data on who's doing what kind of work, what kind of programs are available, how many people are you reaching, what kind of equity and inclusion models do you have involved? And we're going to use that to do a little bit more advocacy in the future to try to advocate for environmental education in many different ways. Next slide. We have also an environmental education program that's an online course that anyone can take. And it really demonstrates the value of people creating a portfolio that they can carry forward into the work that they're doing. It's been in place since 2015, and I think since then we've certified about 105 environmental educators. And again, not all of them are in the K through 12 realm. Many of them are also people that have been working in the field for some time. Some of them are people that are brand new to the field, and so that's a nice introduction to them to get them acquainted with the work that we do and how to design programs. So it also has a action project attached to it where people learn how to do program planning and evaluation for the work that they're going to be doing in their place. And next slide. The other thing that we started this year is an EE Fellows program, and this is for young professionals who are 18 to 23 years of age that are entering the field. And for this, people are paired with a mentor, and they're working with a mentor to help develop a program, and they're enrolled in that environmental certification program. So they're going through that with a reviewer, and then they also have an opportunity to build a program with somebody that can help them in a hands-on way. And we just started that, so the folks that we have are really excited to participate. They all went to the NAAEE conference that just happened a couple weeks ago, and for many of them, that was their first professional experience attending a conference like this. And so what I like to do is make sure I'm communicating the value of people using their professional associations and using that network, regardless of whether it's environmental education or something else, because I think we all know that there is a power in networking and learning from your community and learning from the experiences that everyone else is having to share information and ideas. Next slide. And yeah, our conference is going to happen again, like I said, in 2023 in September. So if you're interested in learning more about who we are and what we do and connecting with our network, or if you know other people that are interested in that, then we can certainly add you to our contact list. We've got a Google group right now. So that's a place where people are able to just connect with each other in between us getting together in person and sharing that special energy that you get when you are in person at an event. Next slide. And if you're interested, we are on social media, of course. Those are our places where you can find us, EE in Arizona on Instagram, and Facebook, it's just AAEE. And then next slide, which is my last slide. And there's my contact information there on the bottom left. It's director@arizonaee.org. So please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. All right, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Estrella, and she'll tell you about what's happening in California.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Estrella Risinger. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the executive director of the Association for Environmental and Outdoor Education in California. I'm so glad to be here, albeit virtually, connecting with all of you and having this opportunity to share how we work to advance the impact of environmental and outdoor education in California. Next slide, please. AEOE's work is primarily conducted from Uchin in unceded Lisjan territory in what is now known as the San Francisco East Bay Area. We acknowledge that this area is the Aboriginal homeland of the Confederated Villages of Lisjan, today referred to as the Ohlone, since time immemorial, and recognize the continued persistence and resilience of culture and community, despite the adverse impacts of colonialism. Ohlone people have a lasting relationship with the land, one of deep respect, agreement, and reciprocity, collaborating to help maintain balance. AEOE acknowledges and supports Indigenous communities advocating for a more equitable and inclusive future. Next slide. So I wanted to give you a little snapshot about our organization and who we are, what we do. So we were founded in 1954 by a group of outdoor educators, making us one of the first associations of our kind in the nation. Our vision is for every young person to live in a healthy community with access to meaningful learning experiences outdoors. To achieve this vision, we work to connect, educate, and advance the field of environmental and outdoor education in our state. We are a network of dedicated individuals and organizations that are committed to using environmental and outdoor education as a tool to creating lasting environmental change. And if you're here with us today, I assume that means all of you. We are guided by the work of our members, EE providers across the state. And if you are based in California, today is a great day to join our community. Members get special pricing to events like our annual Program Leaders Retreat, regional meetups, and the statewide conference. Next slide. Here are some of the programs and resources that we offer. I wanted to highlight a few that I thought might be relevant to you all today. And some of these happen annually. Some are offered on a continual basis. But really our aim is to have a range of program offerings for educators working in a variety of settings, inclusive of formal educators in the classroom and those in non-formal or informal settings, like nature centers, after-school programs, museums, or really anywhere else where folks are teaching in or about the environment. And the first thing I wanted to mention is that we offer a statewide job board, a range of positions, from those education positions like I mentioned, working directly with students, to administrators and operations staff, facilities, cook staff, really everything you can imagine. Many folks who are supporting the programs behind the scenes. So that is one resource that we have on our website. Next slide. We also offer a number of awards in our state, recognizing exemplary individuals and organizations, including the Northern and Southern California Environmental Educators of announced yesterday. Really excited to celebrate those two individuals, as well as our Lifetime Achievement Award. And in the spring of 2022, Save California Salmon was our environmental education organization of the year. Save California Salmon works in Northern California and beyond. Justice for California tribes and the environment is at the heart of Save California Salmon's work. They are a Native-led organization that specializes in organizing, policy advocacy, leadership, and curriculum development, as well as media, hosting events, and youth action. And I wanted to highlight them here because I think they're a really inspirational example of an organization that does so much more than environmental education, but that education piece is really central to their mission and their work. And we were really excited to partner with them and elevate their work. Next. Similar to Arizona, we also offer a certification program for environmental educators in our state. Our program it mirrors the school year, so it's nearly an entire year, and it's designed for folks who are current practitioners to hone their skills, broaden their network, deepen and reflect on their practice, and gain professional recognition for their work. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, or know a colleague or a friend who might be, we open the application period in the spring and typically make those announcements in June and July for the program that begins in August of each year. Another of our program offerings are online workshops on a range of topics, and these are primarily offered through our various partners. I wanted to mention this particular partner that we're working with. This is the Outdoor Learning Store, and a number of us in the affiliate network are working with the Outdoor Learning Store to offer virtual workshops on a range of topics. Here you can see the fall lineup, so there's just a few left in these remaining months. But do recommend that you check them out. These are all free. They take place on Tuesday afternoons, and often the attendees of these workshops are given discounts to make purchases from the online learning store, which has a range of materials for learning and teaching outdoors for students and educators, and many of which are offered through partnership with different Native-led organizations and companies. And one particular workshop that we're especially excited to share, next slide, is we'll give you just a little sneak what is being offered in the winter. So in January, we are thrilled that the partnership will be offering an opportunity to learn from award-winning, best-selling author and professional consultant Monique Gray-Smith, as she shares about her most recent published book, the adaptation of Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass for the young adult audience. And this is a book that is hot off the presses. It's just been released, I think, as of a few days ago. It can now be purchased as well through the Outdoor Learning Store. And we're just so excited. This is a book that we hear from our community, at least the original, Dr. Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass, is one that has been pivotal in helping environmental educators to see and understand the importance of incorporating traditional ecological knowledge. And this young adult version is something that we're just so delighted to be able to bring to a new audience. Weekends on the 6th, we are hosting regional meetups across California for environmental education professionals. So if you are based in our state, I hope you'll consider joining colleagues from across the region for an afternoon of networking, learning, and connection, including a tour of a local site and our virtual watch party celebrating the Environmental Educators of the Year award winners. And I'll close with one last announcement, so next slide. And this is a save the date for our annual conference, which will take place in May. And again, if you're based here in California or want to come from anywhere, you're welcome to join us for a weekend of learning, networking, and fun in the Redwood. And this is a wonderful opportunity to attend workshops. We have a keynote speaker, award ceremony, evening entertainment, and get to hear from the participants of our certification program, where they showcase their final action projects, which are uniquely designed projects that support needs in their community and are really the culminating experience in that certification program. So we will be opening the call for proposals in just a few months, with registration to open shortly after. And all of the different events that I mentioned can be found on our website at aeoe.org/events. Next. And finally, I want to thank you for your time and your partnership. Many of the organizations we work with across California are eager to connect with and partner with local tribal groups, working collaboratively to help young people to connect to the land and the water and to better center Indigenous knowledge and practice. If you aren't yet partnering with community-based organizations near you that are offering environmental and outdoor education, I hope that you will see this as an invitation to connect with values and interests in a more sustainable planet for generations to come. I hope I'll have a chance to connect with you all in person someday, and particularly if you're here in California, I'd love to meet you. For now, I'm going to turn things over to one of our in-person presenters who is going to close us out. Thank you all.
What a great bunch of resources that are available to all of you, and encourage you to figure out which of those organizations might be beneficial and connect up with them. Some years ago, I was on the board for the AAEE, the Arizona group. And so we worked with them for several years on things, and they've really made a lot of progress since then. So, but I'm with the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, and most of the programs you heard have some geographical area that we serve. We serve nationally the 574 federally recognized tribes. And so next slide, please. I'm going to do a little bit of introduction for ITEP for those that are not familiar with us. Virgil Misfayasfa was the Hopi director that hired me. We now have a scholarship in his name, but he had a vision about seeing the mountains, and that's pretty close to what the mountain looks like today. We've got snow on the peaks again, so but he founded us just a little over 30 years ago, and I joined the organization 24 years ago. Next slide, please. And this is the ITEP mission. Quite a bit of our funding comes through EPA, and the AIR program that I manage is one of those. I do work in other media areas. And in fact, I think one of my staff, yeah, there's Josie. So she's here today. But next slide. So ITEP has a number of programs. The fourth bullet down is one that I manage. But you can see we have lots of other programs, mostly focusing on tribal staff, training and technical assistance. So within that list, we're somewhat unique because we work with teachers and kids and communities. Next slide, please. And so this is our program. The students there from Fort Peck are doing an assessment on their building. So what's more local environment than the building that you go to school in? But we provide a number of different services in different areas. One that I'm currently really focusing on is healthy schools and homes, because with our COVID pandemic, which is not over, we really want to focus on making sure we have indoor environments where we can lower the risk of illness and disease. But we work in all these other areas. Next slide, please. And our mission statement is really focused on working with communities on their issues of concern, applying math and science in a way that empowers our tribal students to be citizens of their sovereign nation. Next slide, please. And we have a number of different goals. I already mentioned the one, better learning environments in all tribal schools. So focusing on indoor quality. We have a growing internship program. I've had interns for over 20 years, but if all the money that I've been promised comes in, we'll have 45 interns this next summer and academic year, all hopefully Native American students. I need places to put them. So I'm looking at you guys. Some of them could be doing environmental education. I got a slide that kind of outlines where they could be working, but I need some help. I got to place a lot of students in good positions. Next slide, please. So we do outreach. These pictures are actually all water. We do have a small grant for water, only in Arizona right now. But I'm a chemist, and I love doing water quality work and water resources. And of course, working with students and teaching them about the importance of water. And also do air, which I have a slide on that coming up. So next slide, please. We like doing teacher workshops because we know teachers influence their students into the future. And I think most of these pictures are actually another water workshop. The activity over there, let's see, I guess it's on the left. It's one of my favorite activities. It's a obstacle course for the teachers to navigate. And it's fun to sometimes compare working with adults versus kids. The adults have a real hard time with this one. Kids, they breeze through it. But next slide, please. So some of the other programs mentioned guidelines, and I wanted to emphasize guidelines that I look to. So Josie, that you waved at us earlier, she's got a strong background in cultural responsiveness. Her degree was actually connected to that, but I also work with the Alaska Native Knowledge Network. Some 20 years ago, when they were just getting started, I visited Alaska and I met with many of the folks that were developing this program. And since then, they've published a lot of stuff. And these are the guidelines that I look to. They're not really specifically environmental education, but they're culturally responsive education. So encourage all of you to look at these guidelines as you consider doing education in your own communities for being culturally responsive. And even though they're based out of Alaska, I think they have broad applicability in all of our tribal communities here in the lower 48. Next slide, please. So there's a variety of cultural standards, but this is kind of my favorite one, looking at schools. I'm a former school teacher. Look out, I might teach you about the periodic table or something crazy like that, but I started doing this not because somebody told me to or because it was published in a book, but because I found my students responsive. When I started working on things that mattered to the community, when I brought elders into my classroom, the kids responded to that. So I'm an engineer that decided to become a teacher. And I like to tell people that my students taught me how to teach. I never took a formal education class, so I don't know what educators do, but have a pretty good idea what kids like. So, so these are standards that I work with. Next slide, please. Of course, we're also very connected and very interested in traditional knowledges. My boss's boss is really interested in the traditional knowledges, and the link at the bottom is a document that she put together along with several other tribal leaders about the use of tribal knowledges in our educational processes. And it was really focused on climate change, but I think, again, it has broad applicability for working generally in our tribal communities. Next slide, please. So I did mention that we also do air quality work. That's where currently most of my funding is coming from, except for internships. And so we've been working with University of Montana, and they have what they call their REACH program, which is really about looking at air quality and how it impacts health, and engaging students in actually collecting data. And so I keep working on this one, and it's been difficult to get off the ground during the pandemic, but now that things are opening up a little bit, we hope to continue these efforts. Next slide, please. And one of the things I like about it, it's a very research-oriented approach to educating. As I said, I'm a former school teacher, but I'm an engineer and scientist. I worked with in the U.S. Army as an engineer, and I really like doing research. And so bringing that and having the students do that is, I find really fascinating and interesting. So, but the nice thing about this particular project is they give a framework for teachers and others to actually work with the students in a research context. So it gives you the support to work with students. Next slide, please. we have a number of different sensors, and I've had a display out on the vendor floor. I don't necessarily recommend any particular sensor, but I'm definitely interested in a broad spectrum of sensors. When I worked in the Army as an engineer, I was actually a sensor technology engineer. So now 30 years later, to see what we were able to do with sensor technologies, of course, I find fascinating. My first air PM sensor that I bought some 15 years ago cost me $5,000. I've been buying those right there for 50. The scale has kind of changed a little bit on us. So now I can put sensors in the hands of students. When I had a $5,000 PM device, I have to be honest, I didn't really give that to the students. It was too scary. I mean, that was a couple of paychecks. So, but now that I can get them for $50, I try to get them into the hands of lots of students so they can increase their awareness, including tribal staff. I do also do trainings for tribal staff. I have a training for air quality education and outreach we did about a month ago. And everyone that participated in that training got one of those sensors. And by the way, tomorrow I'm doing some presentations and we'll have door prizes. No door prizes today, but tomorrow our presentation, we'll have some door prizes. So, and the more people I get there, the more prizes I'll do. So just, pass the word along. Looking at both indoor and outdoor, and I've been doing radon tests for quite some time with students. So I really like students exploring their environment. Next slide, please. A grant that we got from EPA Region 9. Eileen talked about Region 9 funding. We got one of these some years ago, and I developed a service learning program out of it. So what we're trying to do here is stop a sand dune from enveloping a home, and we failed miserably. It turns out that a technique that worked in Mongolia, that you see the pictures there of the students working on, worked well, but in northern Arizona, our winds are too high, and well, the sand dune was more powerful than us. But the kids had a blast. We spent the whole day out there laying out what I called the tube socks with sand in them to hold it's supposed to hold the dirt in place, and then we planted seeds to grow. We did get a little bit of growth, and we might have slowed down the sand dune for a few hours, but still really interested in trying to figure out how we can stabilize our sand dunes, which are a consequence of climate change. And like I said, the kids had a lot of fun. They got to miss class and they go work in the hot sun, hard, shoveling, and they loved every minute of it. Next slide, please. Also have had the opportunity, the same project, to work with our local Navajo scientists. Arnold Clifford is a geobotanist, Navajo, published several books, but I had the pleasure of having him interact and work with my students. So if you ever get a chance to talk to Arnold, he's fun to talk to around the campfire. Next slide, please. So I told you I'd show a slide with my internships. So this is where we have them. They all focus on tribal work and focus on placing Native American students. And these are 3 from this year. This year I had, well, actually that's the count from this year. Next year we're hoping to double the land and water up to 24, and then 10 more for the academic year. So lots of interns. Next slide, please. And that's my contact information and my boss's contact information. That's the road to my grandkids. They live out in, well, their family lives in Monument Valley. Uh-oh. Sorry, we'll have to talk later. All right. So we actually have a few minutes for Q&A. But before we go to Q&A, I just want to tell a story. So 24 years ago, when I took this position with ITEP, I accepted the title environmental educator. When my grandfather found out, he told my daughter, he couldn't tell me this directly, but he told my daughter that all those environmentalists need to be pushed into the Pacific Ocean. He was a rancher, and his perception that environmentalists were not a good thing. But I had spent a lot of time with my grandfather, and he's a rancher. And actually, he was my example and my role model because he took care of the land. What he didn't understand is that being an environmental educator, being an environmentalist, part of it is taking care of the land and all living things. And he did that. And he was one of the great environmentalists, but he didn't know it. But I encourage all of us to be thinking about our environment and how we're sharing that with our families, with our children. I now have 6 grandchildren. I'm really focusing on them individually. But of course, every student that I get time to work with, I'm really interested in helping them develop their understanding. So I think now we're going to open it to questions. So we have a microphone available. And remember that we have folks that are virtually as well. So feel free to ask questions of them as well as of Eileen and I.
Yes, Emily Pimentel with US EPA Region 9. Nelson, could you please say a little bit more about the internship program? I believe, I know we've had some in Region 9, and I can't remember if they come with a stipend. Can they work remotely, or are there preferences? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
It's pretty flexible. The main criteria is serve a tribal community. And, there's different categories. So there's land and water, there's air, there's climate change. So they're each funded by, different EPA or other funders that have expectations. And they're all outlined on the webpage. But we're looking for positions at government agencies. This last summer, I had them at USGS, EPA, a bunch of them with tribes, nonprofit organizations. Had one at Nature Conservancy up in Durango. I placed them in Washington, D.C. I placed them in Anchorage, Alaska. So, that's pretty broad, a lot of different possibilities. The process is to apply to me with a 1-page application. It's online on my website. Right now, if you go there, it still says last year, but it'll be updated. But if you did go ahead and click on the link and apply, I will get the application. And beyond that, if you want a specific discussion about your situation and what you would like to do, I'm happy to talk to you about that. But it's pretty wide open. So, and I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses, so I see the sign. But how much time do we have?
Of 5 minutes.
5 minutes. So we got time for 5 more questions, unless there's another question about the internship program.
She has an internship question, so we'll just go to her first.
I was just wondering what the minimum age is, please. The minimum age for interns.
Something about interns, but I didn't quite catch.
The minimum age for participating.
Yeah, I'm having an argument with EPA about that right now. When my boss did the last work plan, he left out the word high school, 2 words. So I'm trying to get it put back in. Each internship program is a little different. So with the air quality ones, I'm hoping to get high school put back in, and then I'm looking for 16 and above. Most of these are focused on college students. I often have discussions with my funders. So I've got one funder that's providing nearly $500,000, and I tell them, you know, we really need to work on the younger ones because that's when we can really make a difference. And they keep focusing on the older college students, and we really got to bring more up into the system, the pathway. My granddaughter's 10, and she's already got big plans about everything that she's going to save and do, and be a doctor and an environmental engineer. And I've had a little bit of influence on that. And I know that we got to start young and make a difference. But in the past, I've had, let's see, what's the youngest I've had? I've had a 10-year-old intern, but that was a very unusual situation, and her mother was supervising. So I'm really open-ended, but my funders are not always so open-minded. So mostly college students is what we're looking at. But yeah, I'm hoping my project officer lets me expand at least into high school. So other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Eileen. You mentioned the potentially getting for professional development, being able to be one of the people who reviews those EPA grant applications. Like, so what's the path to be able to do that? Because I feel like that'd be very insightful to be part of that.
Yeah, you can just contact me, and when the application review process happens, we'll ask for a resume. But if you have a background in the environmental field or education, we're always happy to accept reviewers. And yeah, I know that folks who are interested in applying, years that they haven't applied, some people have reviewed to learn more about the process. So it can be really helpful and interesting.
Yeah, that's what we applied and didn't get it. But but also what, like if we were to do that, is there like a time limit that we would have to wait before we could reapply if we were to be on the committee? I mean, obviously not that session, but
yeah, definitely can't be that session. As far as I know, there is not a time limit, but I can confirm that and get back to you. Yeah, I have your contact info.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Mark. I'm a PO for GAP. I want to thank you all for providing these resources for all of our tribal partners. Just wanted to use this moment to plug a session tomorrow for education and outreach under GAP. We have 2 tribes showcasing what some projects they did during COVID. One of them is a virtual Earth Day, and another one is their this group that they do. They've met via Zoom every month, and they have elders providing input. So if you want to see how some things that they've done in their communities and see how it could possibly apply to your community, we're going to be in Tahoe D tomorrow after lunch.
Thank you for making that announcement. We also have, Josie will be doing a special environmental education using TikTok. So we encourage you to participate in that. I think it's late Thursday, Josie?
It's
or no, early Thursday.
Yeah, I have a session. It's a training session. It's an actual activity, and it's 8:30 a.m. The title is Culturally Responsive for Air Quality Sensors.
So crawl out of bed early and come to Josie's. And then I'm doing one, partnering again with Eileen. We're doing one on air quality education outreach, and that's one of those that we'll have a door prize for. But I'll be introducing some of the air quality stuff in more detail. I mean, I did a couple slides here, but I'll be introducing in more detail some of the things that we do for working with students on air quality. So if that's something you're interested in, we'd encourage you to come, and some of you will walk away with some air quality sensors. And my project officer tells me that these are all loans. So they all belong to me, but they're on loan. If you ever decide you don't want to use it anymore, you got to send it back to me. But otherwise, if anybody asks, it's a loan.
Sorry to be the.
So any other questions? I think we have time maybe for one more, or maybe we're out of time.
We have to wrap up, sadly.
All right, one last question. Has anybody got one? All right, well, my question to you is, what are you going to do when you leave here about teaching your family, your friends, your